Jalen and Jacoby is presented by Grey Goose.
Here's Jalen Rose. I'm David Jacoby. We are Jalen and Jacoby. Jalen, what is it that we do?
We make sure that we give the people what they want.
In a draft that promised to be full of trades and surprises, it kinda wasn't. Anthony Edwards went first to the Timberwolves as most expected, and then with the second pick, the Warriors picked James Wiseman, which is interesting because they got some very bad news yesterday. Klay Thompson has what looks to be serious lower leg injury. Jalen, what do you think about Wiseman at 2 and the Warriors' future with this news about Klay?
I believe Wiseman was the correct choice for the Golden State Warriors because one of the things they needed, and we highlighted that on this show, is height. Someone that has the ability to do rim runs, block shots, and just give them that presence down low. And so I believe, regardless of the Klay news, that ultimately Wiseman was the correct choice for the Golden State Warriors at number 2 because he's not going to change, or whoever they draft isn't going to fix the dynamics of, without the Splash Brothers, the Golden State Warriors become one of the teams that hope to make the playoffs in the Western Conference versus a contending team if he's healthy.
Absolutely. I mean, obviously it's never good news when someone gets injured, but this is particularly heartbreaking because Klay was battling back from a previous injury. The Warriors had such hard luck last year. I predicted that this would be the largest turnaround of a winning percentage and record from one season to the next, but without Klay, all of that is in jeopardy. We wish him the best, and we hope there's some good news coming out of the Bay Area, but it does not look good at this moment. Moving on in the draft, our guy, who I consider to be the best prospect in the draft, someone who you did a great sit-down interview with, LaMelo Ball, went number 3 to the Hornets. What do you think about that fit and what he brings to Charlotte?
You know how much I stress this, family. It ain't necessarily where you go, it's when you get there. And I think this is a terrific landing spot for him because Graham became a playmaker for Charlotte last year. Now both of those guys can handle those responsibilities of ball handling, creating. You have a couple of bigs that are finishers in P.J. Washington and Miles Bridges that are going to benefit off the pick and roll ability of LaMelo Ball. And then just playing in Charlotte, hopefully he becomes a superstar caliber player that now creates some relevancy in that market.
I like this for him because it gives him a lot of room to breathe. They've got Terry Rozier and, as you mentioned, Graham in the backcourt, but he's going to find some minutes there, and he's going to get some time to really shine and sort of like not be in the confines of an offense with a lot of scorers around him. Hopefully this will work out for him. I'm predicting big production from him and a Rookie of the Year because he is, as you mentioned, such a good spot for him. Now, Jalen, as the night went on, there was a couple things that were interesting, but who are some picks a little bit later on in the draft that you really liked? I'm going to start with mine, Cole Anthony to the Magic. Now, you remember coming out of high school, Cole Anthony was ranked one of the top players, and I think much like it's one of those players that slipped because of an injury in college. However, he is going to produce really, really well. I love him in Orlando. Who did you like later in the draft?
I love Cole Anthony. Shout out to my brother Greg, his father. I believe this draft was unique overall, Jacoby, because when you look at the lottery, you don't see players from Duke and Kentucky and UNC and Kansas. My sleepers, one in the East, is the Atlanta Hawks and what they were able to do in the draft, but also in the West, Jalen Smith of the Phoenix Suns. We talked about Chris Paul to go with Devin Booker and the young wings that they have along with Ayton. But that young man right there is going to bring a level of physicality and also shooting to the big man spot in Phoenix. Both of those squads, to me, Phoenix and Atlanta, are both teams in their conference that did not make the playoffs this previous year that I anticipate now, based on how they've drafted over the last couple of years and the development of the players on their roster, will firmly entrench themselves into the playoffs this year.
And both Smith for the Suns and Okongwu for the Hawks enter a position where they're not going to be asked to start and take the load because they've got Ayton in Phoenix, and then they've got Clint Capella, who a lot of people forget is on the Hawks. He just didn't play last year and didn't go to the bubble, but they come into really good situations. Those are our three sleepers, but there's other things that happened around the draft, but not necessarily in the draft. There was a lot of movement on the roster of the Philadelphia 76ers. We all thought that Al Horford had an untradeable contract. Well, guess what? That's not the case. He was traded to OKC for Danny Green. They also made a move and got Seth Curry. They're adding Green and Curry some much-needed shooting to the 76ers. What do you think about their moves last night?
The Sixers had a terrific night. I agree with you. And one of the things I must do is bring a level of objectivity to this game. And Daryl Morey is well liked amongst multiple people who do what we do for a living. I could probably say he's done better so far with the Sixers than he did his entire time with the Rockets. How about that, Jacoby? Because if you look back at what he did in Houston, that situation is actually a mess. And they lost their head coach and Mike D'Antoni. As opposed to the Philadelphia 76ers, you talked about freeing that salary cap space with Al Horford, trading Josh, getting shooting as Seth Curry. Danny Green is a 3-and-D kind of guy with championship level experience. But anything that takes place in Philadelphia ultimately is going to hamper. Anything that takes place in Philadelphia is going to be predicated on two people. Is Ben Simmons going to be able to make shots outside of the paint? And is Joel Embiid going to be able to stay healthy? We know that he's going to miss games throughout the regular season. But the last 2 years, once they got to the playoffs, Embiid also missed playoff games. So that's going to be crucial. Those two guys are still going to be the anchor to what they're trying to do. But I think Tobias Harris is going to be a player that flourishes with Doc Rivers as the head coach.
Well, Doc Rivers famously had Austin Rivers on his roster, and now he's got Seth Curry, who most people know but some may not, is Doc Rivers' son-in-law. So he's now had his son and now his son-in-law on his team in the past handful of years. I really think that when you look at the Sixers roster, one thing that they are missing is shooting, and they get that with Green and Curry. I really think that was smart for them. And Richardson sort of played great in Miami, and when they acquired Richardson, I really thought that he would be a 3-and-D type player. Didn't really work out that way in Philly, and I think that they did some good moves here. But one thing we need to mention is what Sam Presti is doing in Oklahoma City. Just look at the picks that this man has amassed. Just look at all these picks. For the next 5 years, they're going to be drafting, if they keep these picks, so many first-round picks. All I know is this, is the Oklahoma City G League team is going to be the best G League team in the history of the G League. If I was on the G League roster right now, I would be very concerned about all the first-round picks that are coming into the system.
One thing I want to say about Daryl Morey and Sam Presti, both of those guys, again, are terrific general managers. And you're going to hear a lot of people parrot the Oklahoma City Thunder having all of those draft picks. But here's what I'll say to you. What would you consider success with those picks? Because I've looked at their team over the last decade, and I don't believe any of those guys are going to be better than Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, James Harden, Paul George, Victor Oladipo. So what are we calling success in OKC?
So
what are we calling
to me,
success in OKC?
So you and I both know that draft picks are overrated and picks don't play. Success to me is trading those picks for superstar players. That's success if you're the Oklahoma City Thunder. You shouldn't be drafting any of those picks. Just like you amass those, they call them trade assets. Use those assets and turn them into actual established players. That would be success for those picks for Oklahoma City. Now, we do have to mention that the Sixers did draft guest on our show, Tyrese Maxey. So they added Curry, they added Maxey, and they added Green. Shout to Tyrese getting drafted right here. I think that was part of the good night for the 76ers. If I'm a Sixers fan, I definitely feel better today than I did about my team 48 hours ago. Shout to Tyrese Maxey. Now, something else happened. There's all this trades and roster changes and draft picks, but quietly in the background, Bogdan Bogdanović, one of my favorite players, was all ready to do a sign and trade and go to the Bucks, and that, along with bringing in Drew Holiday, was supposed to solidify Giannis and maybe entice him to sign the max extension. Well, guess what? Bogdan Bogdanović was like, yeah, the whole sign and trade that you set up, there's the sign part that I have to do that I'm not doing. He's now going to enter free agency. What do you think the implications are for the future of Giannis and the Bucks that Bogdan might not be on the roster?
I feel like this deal eventually gets done, Jacoby. It's just him saying, hey, listen, I know that we have an opportunity to do a sign and trade, but if I open up my free agency to other teams, I might be able to get more cash. That's basically what this sounds like to me, him trying to make a business move. But I'll be surprised if he doesn't ultimately end up with the Bucks.
Jalen, you are watching ESPN, but sometimes on this show, we turn into the Cardinals News Network. And there is big news because the Cardinals play Thursday night. They don't just play anyone. They play division rival Seattle Seahawks. And let's talk about Kyler Murray, our guy, because he has now supplanted Lamar Jackson as the best running quarterback in the league with the plays he makes with his legs. Jalen, what do you think about Kyler's mobile ability?
The ultimate dual threat. He can throw a bomb, and he can also run with the best of them. And it seems like he's getting a rushing and a passing touchdown in every game. And they've done a terrific job when you draft a quarterback number 1 overall to try to make it as comfortable for him as possible. They got him Cliff Kingsbury, somebody that was going to run an offense that he's familiar with. They have Christian Kirk, somebody that he played with previously. You go out and get DeAndre Hopkins. You keep Larry Fitzgerald. You try to create a run game that's going to be consistent on a weekly basis. And so now Kyler can just go out there, Jacoby, and do his thing. And it's been spectacular to watch.
And D-Hop is, in my opinion, and his, the best receiver in the league. But I'm glad you mentioned Christian Kirk, because when you're watching these Cardinals games, Christian Kirk can really take the top off of a defense. He is so fast, and D-Hop, rightfully so, gets all the attention. But without Kirk, you have to wonder if D-Hop is open all the time, because it seems like he can get behind the secondary whenever he wants. Big shout to Christian Kirk, who's been a little bit overshadowed by D-Hop. But we see you here on Jalen and Jacoby. Now, Jalen, it is time to talk about the Seattle defense, because they're not just bad. They are historically bad. Look at these numbers for the Seattle defense. They're shocking. Jalen, what do you think is leading to this poor performance from Seattle on the defensive side of the ball?
A long way from the Legion of Boom. And that poor defense possibly is going to cost Russell Wilson and its explosive offense an opportunity to do some big things this year, Jacoby. When you look at it on paper and a defense that has Bobby Wagner and Jamal Adams obviously has dealt with some injury, you would believe that they'd be substantially better than that. And so you hope to see that improve if you're a Seattle fan, if they're planning on doing anything substantial this season.
Well, remember, let Russ cook? Well, they let Russ cook, and he's turning the ball over. He's been plagued by turnovers. He promises to keep swinging, even though he's been turning the ball over. So we'll see if those swing lead to hits and home runs or more turnovers. But Jalen, I'm about to say something in the world of sports that I'm shocked by. Justin Herbert has a fresher cut than my co-host, Jalen Rose. We'll show you that and much more when we come back. You're watching Jalen and Jacoby.
Jalen and Jacoby is presented by Grey Goose. Drink responsibly. Part of Happy Hour.
With 2020 nearing a close, there's one major takeaway we should all remember. We all need to look out for each other and come together to protect the things we care about, including the planet we all share. That's where Allbirds comes in, because they're on a mission to leave the planet in better shape than they found it. And with the holidays quickly approaching, why not give the gift of Allbirds to a loved one while giving back to Mother Earth, too? They have you covered with planet-friendly gifts from head to toe. For the runners in your life, there's the Tree Dasher, made from eucalyptus, merino wool, and sugarcane. They're ideal for those long jogs on the beach or quick runs around the neighborhood. But if you're worried about the wet and cold season ahead, don't sweat it. Allbirds has the solution with the Wool Runner Mizzles. They're the perfect companion to take on wet, cold winter weather. And don't forget the stocking stuffers. Allbirds has just what you need with their Trino socks and undies. With Allbirds, feel confident knowing you're wearing a product that's doing right by you and the planet. Head to allbirds.com today for the perfect gift to give and receive. Give light, tread lighter. Allbirds.
Hi there, this is Julie Foudy, host of the podcast Laughter Permitted, and I'm here to tell you about our sponsor, Ally. First of all, if you're still stuffing financial documents into a filing cabinet, I am here to save you. Or perhaps you're still waiting in line at a bank. There's a smarter way, my friends. Do your banking online with Ally. Anytime, anywhere, the name is the mission. Ally is your financial ally. Let them make your money work smarter while you get to play, which for me means more time to surf and hang with my sometimes adorable kids. Visit ALLY.com/savings to learn more. Ally Bank, Member FDIC.
NBA free agency officially begins on Friday at 6 Eastern on a special edition of SportsCenter. Follow the breaking news, up-to-the-minute developments, and instant analysis on major moves around the league. Adrian Wojnarowski and Stephen A. Smith live with wall-to-wall coverage on the deals that could impact the NBA landscape. SportsCenter live Friday at 6 Eastern for the start of NBA free agency.
You're watching Jalen and Jacoby, presented by Grey Goose.
Coming to you live from Pier 17 in the South Street Seaport and brought to you by Chase. Welcome back to Jalen and Jacoby. Jalen, it is time for one of our signature segments. Time for Soft Move or Boss Move. We start Soft Move or Boss Move with a reported skirmish between Joe Judge of the New York Giants and the offensive line coach Mark Colombo. Jalen, reportedly it came to blows, and they said it didn't come to blows, but we do know this. Colombo was fired after the fight. Firing your coworker after you got into a verbal or physical argument with them. Soft Move or Boss Move?
It's literally a boss move because when you're the head coach, the offensive line coach works for you. And the Giants have one of the worst offensive line one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL. So it seems like the head coach was challenging the line coach about how they were lackluster in their performance, and it allegedly became a physical altercation. But here's the thing I want to make sure I acknowledge. Jacoby, at what age are men too old to be fighting? Like, how old are these guys to be having a physical altercation, right?
I feel like over 30. If you're over 30, you can't be getting in physical altercations. You're too old. If you're still young and dumb, you can have a crooked nose like myself at the end of it. Jalen, now we're going to move on to something that is just very shocking. You haven't gotten a haircut in like a month, which is really, really disturbing. And now Justin Herbert has gotten a haircut, but he let his strength and conditioning coach cut his hair. Soft move or boss move, letting your colleague cut your hair?
That's a soft move. You got to be really particular, Justin. Come on, young fella. I know you have that youthful enthusiasm and you know it's going to grow back. But that grass on the left looks a lot better than that grass on the right. So I would suggest that if you need some tips in Cali for a barber, holla at your boy.
Jalen has a barber in every major metropolis in the domestic United States. Jalen, you going to show people what you're working with under that hat? You going to give them a reveal? Going to give us a reveal?
No, it's just bad hair day.
It's tough. It's tough. Moving on, RJ Hampton was drafted technically by the Bucks, but he was then moved eventually to the Nuggets. Apparently his dad knew that, took the Bucks hat and then just tossed it. So you don't need that. Throwing the hat after the team drafts you, soft move or boss move?
That's a boss move because RJ Hampton went through a lot, Jacoby. He went international to hone his skills. I'm pretty sure initially he hoped that he'd go higher. Once he got picked, Dad wasn't playing those games. We're going to get the right hat in here. We're going to show love to the team that stepped up and drafted us. We ain't showing love to the teams that didn't pick us. We're going to ride with the team that drafted us.
I love it. And also, we had this family photo during the draft. It was Malachi Flynn's family photo. Jalen, soft move or boss move, the outfits in the family photo?
So here's what I want to say to everyone that sees this picture. First off, they have a beautiful family. That picture's a boss move. And I will say this. On this program, we retired what a lot of people call the shirts that the gentlemen are wearing. So if you're somebody on social media or does this for a living or just follows reality, the term that's used to describe that undershirt is outdated. It's archaic. It's retired. Do not use it. It's a terrific family photo.
And finally, we have this. George Clooney once gave every one of his 14 friends $1 million in cash. Soft move or boss move, giving 14 people $1 million.
So this is a boss move, and it just reminds me that I got the wrong friends. I got the wrong friends. Because it seems like when I look down at my phone, everybody trying to get money from me. Not too many people are trying to give me money. Boss move.
I won't even buy Jalen a beer, let alone give him $1 million. Please. I asked Jalen for his Venmo one time. He's like, I don't have one. People are just going to hit me up on it. When we come back, not only do we have the Cardinals facing the Seahawks tonight, we have Gucci versus Jeezy. We're getting you ready for that right after this. Stay tuned. You're watching Jalen and Jacoby.
Hi there, this is Julie Foudy with my co-host Lynn Olzawi from the podcast Laughter Permitted, and we're here to tell you about our sponsor, Ally. Lynn and I are actually customers ourselves, and that's why we're pumped to have teamed up with Ally from the very beginning.
And Jules, I think it's safe to say that you and I love working together, but we also enjoy having some fun together.
Indeed, so we started thinking about how we can make our money do the work while we play.
In fact, there is no reason to go to a bank in 2020. There is a smarter way. It's online, anytime, anywhere.
Ally also has these really cool savings tools that make your money work smarter and faster, which means I get more time at the beach trying to surf or play my newest obsession, pickleball. Don't you judge, Lynn.
No judging. And no more stuffing financial documents into a filing cabinet and hoping your money will organize itself.
Go check out Ally. Visit ALLY.com/savings to learn more. Ally Bank, member FDIC.
Jalen and Jacoby is presented by Grey Goose. Drink responsibly. Part of Happy Hour.
UFC 255, 2 belts on the line. It is Figueiredo versus Perez, and Shevchenko goes up against Jennifer Maia. That all starts at 10 p.m. on Saturday. Welcome back to Jalen and Jacoby. Jalen, there's a lot of discussion about the draft, and this team did this and this team did that. What is one team that no one's talking about that you think did a great job yesterday improving their team?
You know, I like to go deeper into the box score. And shout to the Miami Heat. I love their draft of Precious. He's going to be a terrific front court player for them. But I want to give love to the Atlanta Hawks. You have Trae Young. You have Cam Reddish. You have DeAndre Hunter, Clint Capella, and you get a chance to draft Okonwu from USC. He has all of the measurables of Bam Adebayo. So now all of a sudden the Atlanta Hawks, in my opinion, go from being a team that was not in the playoffs to one of the best and most exciting young teams in the Eastern Conference. Shout to the Atlanta Hawks. They're doing a terrific job building their roster.
They really have. And people forget about Hunter and Reddish because there were so many other people that sort of overshadowed them in their draft class, but they're developing well. And you've got Young, Okonwu, and Collins, and Capella. They really have a nice nucleus down there. They have a lot of players in their second or third year ready to make the leap. Jalen, there's a big game tonight between the Cardinals and the Seahawks, but there's also another face-off that we need to discuss, and that is the versus battle between Gucci and Jeezy. This is the first versus battle where there's like real bad blood between the combatants. What do you expect from the battle tonight?
Well, just so you know, I'm so very excited for hip-hop. Shout to Swiss Beats and Timbaland for getting these two gentlemen in the same room at the same time to celebrate both of their catalogs. I'm friends with Jeezy. Gucci's a friend to the show. I'm just happy that we're going to get a chance to celebrate this trap music tonight. Atlanta, stand up. It's all about celebrating the catalog, representing the ATL to the fullest. Peace up, A-Town down.
Jalen, I know you spend a lot of your time focused on the NFL and the NBA and the sports world, but I know you also spend a lot of time doing potential versus battle matchups. What is a versus battle that you want to see happen in the upcoming weeks?
So that's a controversial thing, David Jacoby. But here's what I want to say. I want to get Busta Rhymes at E40. That's who I want to see. Busta Rhymes and E40. Both of those guys go deeper into the catalog with their bars. And also they have such longevity in the game in unique styles. Both of those guys I want to see get celebrated.
Enjoy the football game tonight. We will be back tomorrow at 2 p.m. on ESPN to break it all down. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our podcast. We always have exclusive content on the podcast.
You're far too kind.
We always say we give the people what they want. Part of that is recording exclusive podcast content for you, our podcast listeners. Jalen, a couple things I want to discuss that we can't discuss on television. Number one, Denny Avdija, overseas star, Israeli, gets drafted, does the interview with like 300 bottles of wine behind him in the wine cellar. Soft move or boss move, doing the draft interview with about 100 bottles of wine in the shot.
That's definitely a boss move, but it's also cultural. And here's what I mean. Let a guy from Detroit get drafted and he had bottles of wine behind him. Let LaMelo Balls get drafted and he's at a restaurant with bottles of wine behind him. That becomes the narrative for that player. Mm-hmm. But because he's an international player, we accept the fact that he probably was drinking wine like most youth before he was 21 years of age. And so I'm not mad at it, but I know that an American-born prospect would not be able to do that because the imagery just wouldn't come off properly.
That's a good point. Jalen, we now have official word that Conor McGregor will re-enter the octagon and fight Dustin Poirier. I like this for McGregor. One thing I love about McGregor is, he took a couple L's, and you would expect after that maybe he would give himself some sort of, some wins, some easy matchups. He does not do that. He always goes and fights one of the baddest, most challenging opponents, and he's doing it again. What do you think about this move from McGregor?
Here's what I think about McGregor continuing to fight. I hope it leads to my brother Floyd Mayweather getting another easy payday by fighting him again. That's kind of what I see happening here. I see Conor continuing to build his name by getting a couple of more fights in the UFC under his belt, doing his MMA thing, and then before you know it, him and Money Mayweather gonna try to link up again and do another fight. How about that, Jacoby? I got to say one other thing. Too. I want to hear what you guys say about that first before I ask you a second question.
I was locked into McGregor versus Mayweather. This is the spectacle, the undertones, the press conferences. Like, I was all about it. But then when the fight started, I was like, McGregor looks all right based on expectations, but it wasn't the most entertaining fight in the world, and it was never challenged. I never felt like Mayweather was truly challenged, so I'm not particularly interested in seeing that again. That spectacle was a one-time thing for me.
I got to tell everybody a secret that I said right after this fight that I want to remind you. You can Google it, so it's not my first time saying it. And I asked for permission for Floyd to tell this story. And it's hilarious, by the way. Fellow Michigander, I got his number in my phone. We stay in contact frequently. The week that Floyd fought Conor McGregor is also the week that he opened his strip club in Las Vegas.
Okay.
And while Conor McGregor was training to fight Floyd Mayweather, Floyd was at Girl Collection every night. Every night. Not one night, not one or two nights. Every night. He was not training. He was not even remotely worried about getting hit and losing that fight. And I know he was there because I might have seen him. I may have seen him there.
Wow. Jalen, he was there just to keep an eye on his business, and you were there as a journalist, I imagine.
Yeah.
He's there to say, he's got an
Yeah.
investment. He put a lot of time and money into this. He's just making sure that everything's running smoothly.
Black
and
businesses.
You're there as a sports
Support
journalist.
Black businesses.
Yeah, you're
Support
a sports
black
journalist, just keeping your eye on one of the biggest stories in sports media. I understand what you're doing there.
But I got to ask you a second thing that also happens in Vegas. My brother Mike Tyson is doing an exhibition fight with Roy Jones Jr. I want to highlight the term exhibition for the health of Roy Jones. Mm-hmm. Because I've been to those three guys and probably Evander Holyfield I've physically seen those 4 people fight more than anybody in my lifetime. I've gone to their fights more than anybody in my lifetime. I love those 4 guys. I recently saw Roy Jones training. I recently saw Michael Tyson training. And after further review, that fight ain't going to be in Roy Jones' best interest if it ain't an exhibition. He's going to get crushed. I'm not saying he's going to lose, Jacoby. I'm saying he's going to get crushed. So I hope that they're wearing headgear. I hope that they have an underlying agreement that they're not really going to go haymaker, but more importantly, that they're going to go sparring. Because mark my words, if that ain't the case, it's going to be hazardous for Roy Jones' health.
Well, it was Tarver that knocked out Jones that time, right?
I was there.
I remember that fight. And he didn't just get knocked out that time. Like, that changed his career. Like, that was a knockout. That was a knockout.
That changed mine, too. Let me tell you why. I was at that fight in New Jersey. And let me tell you the people that I was sitting next to. Chris Webber, Tom Brady, and Donald Trump. Those are the people I was sitting with at that fight. To show you how things have changed in our society over the past decade or so.
Well, I'm concerned about Roy Jones, but I'm also, you know what I really want to see that night? Nate Robinson fight that YouTube kid. What's his name? Jake Paul or whatever. I'm rooting for Nate Robinson harder than I'm rooting for anything in the world. I love Nate Robinson so much. Never met the man in my life, but I just love him. And I really want him to beat up the YouTube guy. I really want that to happen.
So one thing I'll say about Nate, my former teammate, that dude is a fire hydrant. Like, you couldn't pack more toughness into a small man like Nate Robinson. He's a wonderful athlete.
Mm-hmm.
He clearly made his career in playing in the NBA and winning dunk titles. But the dude could play football too.
Oh, yeah. And
so I'm not surprised that he'd be willing to fist fight and get into the ring with an opponent. But what I don't want to see is him continuing to fight experienced people that have done that for a living. Because boxing is one of those things, like in basketball, of course, we talk about experience and it's a game changer versus your opponent. But it's vastly different in boxing. Somebody that's been doing it for a living versus somebody that now adopts it and wants to do it competitively. Because it takes years to get your face and your body numb to the punishment you're going to take. Remember, the person that wins still gets hit 100, 150 times.
That's a great point.
You know what I'm saying? The person that wins still gets hit 150 to 200 times. And so if your body isn't used to getting punched in the ribs, punched in the jaw, I'm telling you, you slump over. Like, oh my God, like when somebody punch you in the stomach, when you're watching a fight, you think, when somebody's watching a fight, you think only the head shots hurt. The body shots hurt more. You ask a fighter, would you rather get hit in the head or the body? They'll choose the head. It's almost like a football player. If you ask them, do you rather me hit me in the head or hit me in the legs? They'll say, hit me in the head.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the one thing I worry about for Nate Jacoby is that he's just not used to taking punches.
Yeah. Well, I'm rooting for him. He's fighting Jake Paul. I think I'm going to have to watch this. I'm going to have to watch it. It's Mike Tyson in the ring. It's Mike Tyson in the ring, you know? Now, Jalen, there's an interesting report I wanted to bring up to you. This is from Chris Miller, who was a sports journalist in the D.C. area, said that the John Wall gang sign video. If you don't remember, here was a video of him at a party in New York City. Not exactly social distancing. He threw up a little gang sign, and Chris Miller's reporting that is likely a factor in the trade rumors involving John Wall. What do you think of this?
I knew this, and a lot of times, as you know, in this game, it's important for me that has so much inside information to temper what I say, because I don't want to affect people's livelihoods and their careers and their trajectories. So I knew this. And the video, what he was doing is called stacking. For those that don't know, it's like, throwing up the set that you represent. And he was in Brooklyn. And once that video emerged, the Washington Wizards were on the phone trying to move him immediately. And if you can get Russell Westbrook in return, you do it. You do it. And if you look on paper, while Russell has elevated himself into an MVP caliber player, if you're looking at the strengths of their games, they have a lot of similarities. Really fast, really strong, really athletic, not knockdown three-point shooters. Both could get you 10 assists. Wall is a tougher defender that'll get you a couple of steals a game. And so I see that as a deal that should be able to get done if both teams are motivated.
Robinson Cano was previously suspended for 80 games in 2018 while he tested positive for a diuretic. He is now being suspended for the entire upcoming baseball season, costing him around $25 million after another PED positive test. Jalen, why do you think he would do this again? And what do you think he feels right now losing over $20 million?
I don't blame Robinson Cano, Jacoby. I don't blame him at all. You know why? I blame the sport of baseball, because they continue to reward this behavior over the last 25, 30 years. You want to send a strong message that you don't welcome PEDs, then make the punishment more severe. Didn't you say this is second offense?
Yes.
So do the math. He's probably made $200 million while taking PEDs. So if you subtract 1 year of 20 plus, that's a profit, and I'll take it. That's how baseball players look at it. You suspend me 40 games. You suspend me 80 games. You suspend me a season. But I'm still getting this deal. I'm still getting this bread. I'm still in the game. I'm not ostracized from the sport. So I blame baseball.
Jalen, this one is tricky. Don't get fired. Zeke Naji was drafted by the Nuggets, and he's involved in the R.J. Hampton trade. Zeke Naji is of Nigerian descent. However, I believe his mother is white. She certainly looked white to me, and she wore a kente cloth dress. How do you feel about that? Because I don't know how to feel about that.
Oh, I loved it. I loved it.
Okay.
I loved it because African culture has been so copied, so underappreciated in the lore of fashion and as a cultural standard that it gets highlighted every now and then via movie. And the most recent movie to do that on an elite level was Black Panther. Rest in peace, Chadwick Boseman. Shout to my brother, Michael B. Jordan. And so I always appreciate those who are willing to embrace who they are and that culture. So I was proud not only of them and that family, but Jacoby, on draft night, we saw a few African, Nigerian families be celebrated. Mm-hmm. And it was terrific to see.
Yeah, I think there was about 6 players in the first round drafted of African descent. Shout out to them. And Jalen, I thought she did it and she looked fine in it, but I don't think I'll be doing the show in a kente cloth shirt tomorrow. I don't think I'll be doing it. That doesn't sit right with me. I don't think I'll be doing that.
You can get away with it. It's
I don't
in the
think
mind,
so, Jay.
dog.
I don't think so. Yeah, no, it's in the mind. I don't have the strength. It is in the mind. I don't have the strength. That's not for me.
I got to tell you a secret, Jacoby.
Mm-hmm.
Most people that hadn't seen the show, when they just hear the podcast, I hate to tell you, but most of those people think you black.
That's not a secret. I am me, Jalen. I am me. Those people hit me up. I'm very white. Very white.
Just so you know, half of your podcast audience thinks you're black.
If you meet my mom and my dad, there's no question. My mom and my dad are very white, extreme white.
You know how many times
white.
people come up to me like, I ain't know Jacoby was white?
Very white. Very, very white.
I ain't know he was that tall. Those are two things people always say when you come to the golf outing.
You never see me stand up. People always like, oh, you're so tall. I didn't know you were tall. It's like, you've never seen me stand up before. You've never seen me standing. You've never seen me standing. And also, I'm next to Jalen. He's 6'7", and I don't look smaller than him. So don't be surprised. Don't be surprised. Don't be surprised when I'm tall. I remember who was it? Tracy McGrady, first time he met me. Tracy McGrady's like, yo, you're tall. I'm like, you're Tracy McGrady. You're surrounded by 7-footers your entire career. Yeah, like, dog, you're tall. Shout out to Tracy McGrady. Oh, man. I'm a coronavirus. We got Dolly Parton. You got to save us. Save us, Dolly. Save us, Dolly. We need you. I'm tired of the coronavirus. They closed New York City schools today, Jalen.
Yeah, they did.
New York City schools
and
closed.
Jacoby, hold on. I got to bring people behind the curtain.
What's that?
I seen David Jacoby do something that I had never seen.
Oh no! Is this gonna hurt my feelings?
No, you was saying it with your chest. David Jacoby, unhappy with the New York City mayor.
Yeah.
For closing schools. Jacoby even pressed send on a tweet.
I know. I should have done it. I'm gonna delete it right now.
Wow.
Because I don't really be tweeting a lot. I don't tweet a lot. I don't get involved in the back and forth online, especially some sort of semi-political issues. But man, I was so mad.
Personal.
I was so mad. I got 3 little kids.
We gonna remember this
in New York City public schools.
Don't let me see you in the hood. Don't let me see you in the hood.
I'm embarrassed. We gonna remember this. I was so mad. Jay. I was so mad. Why are you gonna close the schools but Equinox is open? You know what I mean? Like, I can go to Equinox and get in a treadmill and breathe all over the person next to me. But my kids, with the transmission rate in schools is super low, can't go to school and get an education. They're gonna be on Zoom classes now. Man, one day I'm going to really tweet what I really think about things. That's what's really going to get me fired. I shouldn't have even done that one. I'm deleting it right now.
Wow, I was like, Jacoby's taking this really personal.
We see you will remember this. I'm so corny. I hate myself.
Remember this. I hope you don't run
I said
into
we.
on the street.
Like there's a mob of us walking down outside protesting. I just want my kids to leave the house, man. They just want the kids to leave the house. Last spring was a disaster. Anybody with kids are trying to remote school kids that can't do it themselves. It's a disaster. And we're going to be back to doing this because Staten Island has some COVID. Close it in the hot areas. Close the schools in the areas where COVID is on the rise. I'm fine with that plan. But just blanketly closing every single New York City public school is just not that ain't it.
Well, if it'll make you feel better.
It doesn't.
As a Michigander, I actually support the fact that we're closed over the next few weeks. Schools included. And based on the heightened rate of the coronavirus, not only infections, but deaths, the only way to slow the curve, Jacoby, is to have people park themselves in their homes and or only do essential business. New York City, to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, I haven't been anywhere where people interact and intersect and so many people in small areas congregate like New York City. Nowhere like New York City.
We're all on top of each other on a tiny little island, but everyone's wearing a mask and everyone's abiding by the protocols. Everyone is. But if you can sit down and have a steak and wine next to somebody with a little thin plexiglass there, but my kid can't go to school. We see you. We won't forget this. I hate myself. I'm corny. We see you. I'm so corny.
Threatens the New York City governor.
I hate myself so much. All right, we got time for one voicemail. If you call 985-80-JALEN, you can leave us a voicemail. Do it right now. 985-80-JALEN. We'll put it on the show just like this.
Reg the Ledge.
Hey, guys. This is T, a longtime listener, a big Michigan football fan. I just have a question for Jalen. Do you think Harbaugh and John Brown should be fired, or which one should go first? Because obviously we are having another embarrassing season, and I think it's time for somebody to go. Tell me what you think. Thanks. Peace.
Jalen, you know what he's saying. You know what T wants. T says it's time for Harbaugh to go. Harbaugh's been on the show. You ride for him. You've never fixed your lips and say that he should no longer be the head coach of the Michigan football team. But Jalen, the numbers are the numbers. The win and loss column is the win and loss column. This doesn't look good for Mr. Harbaugh. Do you think he should be the head coach of the football team?
I wouldn't be surprised if this is final year with the team, Jacoby. And and I'm glad you prefaced the question with this, I purposely never knee-jerk responses based on one game, one scenario, one recruit, one season. However, when you're the 4th or 5th highest paid coach in collegiate football, and let me just frame what that means for everyone. That means the only people that make more money than him probably are Nick Saban, Dabo Swinney, and maybe Ryan Day for Ohio State.
Maybe Kelly, Notre Dame.
And maybe Chip Kelly of Notre Dame. Okay. So when you're in that class, that means that you should always be hovering around the college football playoff as one of the 4 teams. Even if you're on the outside looking in, your fan base should be arguing that we should be expanding because our team deserves to be in. Mm-hmm. So it went from being, can Jim Harbaugh overtake Michigan State? That didn't necessarily take place. Ohio State became a mountain that got larger, not smaller. They own us. Like the last 20 years, I don't say nothing about Ohio State. You know this about me. I don't say nothing. I bow down and kiss the ring, dog. I don't say nothing about the Buckeyes. Trust me. Buckeyes is my daddy. They own us. But then when we start losing to Indiana, shout out to our director, Tommy, and I'm happy they're having a great year. In Wisconsin, and then I'm looking at the rankings, and Penn State and Northwestern are ranked higher than us.
Oh, yeah, deservedly so.
I believe because he only has a year and a half remaining on his contract that he's going to walk away from the Wolverines after this year and pursue an NFL job. That's what I believe.
And we know Brian Kelly is the coach of Notre Dame, not Chip Kelly, so don't add us on Twitter. Appreciate the call, T. Yeah. Make sure you call 985-80-JALEN and leave us a voicemail because we'll put it on tomorrow's show. We'll be back tomorrow. Why is that, Jalen Rose?
We're not done. We're not done. We're not done. Got to give the people